Hello, hello. You are listening to episode 28 of the Yay for Business podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how to hire a VA and give you 25 tasks, 25 things that you can have them do. This is one of the number one questions I get asked when it comes to VAs is people realize they need help, but they're just like, what do I even have them do? So if that's you, stay tuned. I want to talk about hiring your first team member and not being a solopreneur because I'm convinced that too many folks work alone for too long. And this is understandable. I don't want you to feel bad about it. I'm not telling you you're doing something wrong. I just want to illustrate an alternative approach and one that I personally believe is probably going to be more effective for you. Okay. So I say this, of course, with lots of compassion and understanding and knowing I certainly did not hire immediately, though I did hire quickly and I wish I had done so faster. I kind of was flopping around a lot in the beginning of my business. But it's also because I want to urge you to stop identifying as a solopreneur. I worry about this term. I think in some ways, nothing's black and white, right? In some ways, it can be really empowering. A lot of people use that term to define themselves. The only reason I really use it, or if I ever use it in marketing, is because it's what so many people identify with or relate to at the point where we, believe people are really in our target audience. But the truth is that it's really unrealistic to be a solopreneur for a long time, and it can set you up for some serious stress. I'm not saying you need to grow a big, massive business and have a massive team and a bunch of employees or anything like that. That's not it. I'm not saying everyone has to do the same thing and have the same type of business. The argument I'm going to make here is that it's so up-leveling for you. It's such a shift in the way you look at your business when you're not the only one doing things in your business, when you're not the only one actively running the business, managing the business, having the vision, the goals, implementing everything. It just makes such a big difference. So we're going to talk about that first person you hire being a VA. It doesn't have to be a VA, but I do think a VA is sort of the person that would work the closest with you. And I'm also going to talk about how this can be really manageable in the beginning, how it can be really doable. And I started really small when I hired my first VA. So why or when should you hire a VA? I believe, and I would recommend, and if I would go back in time, I would tell myself to hire a VA from day one. Because what that does is it kind of puts like a stress test on your business in the sense that hiring a VA from day one, all the fears you would have, like, am I going to make money? What would I have them do? What's the marketing? Well, then it would be like, okay, I'm going to have them do marketing. Okay, what's our marketing? All that are things that you probably should figure out before you launch your business anyway. Not to have total clarity about everything so that you never have to change anything again, but enough clarity so you know, okay, here's the business I'm creating. I've validated this model. I know that this is something people are looking for, and I've thought through the processes of this business. Hiring a VA really forces you to do all of that. So if you're like, I'm not ready to hire a VA because I have to figure all this other stuff out, well then what's great is now you know that you need to figure a lot of that stuff out. If you're like, oh, I don't want to hire a VA because they're going to come in for me. It was like, they're going to come in and like, they're not going to be able to find any, like my folders are a mess. Like the organization of my business won't make any sense to them. Well, what I realized was I didn't need to organize the whole business before I hired, but I needed to organize it a little bit more. And so hiring a VA gave me that deadline, that accountability to get some things in order. People get really caught in the trap of needing more money, but then they don't do the things that bring in money because they're not taking their business seriously. They're treating it like a hobby. And I don't want to sound too harsh there, but I also do want that to be a big of a wake-up call. If you're worried your business isn't going to make money and that's why you're not hiring a VA, again, that's the problem. We need to figure out, we need to get you making money, not avoiding hiring a VA. There's lots of doable ways to do that where you can hire someone for as little as like 5 hours a week even, and have them do some basic admin stuff and really practice, working with someone else and delegating and training and showing them how things are done in your business and accepting the way that they are going to do things, which is going to be a little bit differently from you. So people get caught in this trap of like, I hear this question all the time. How much do I need to save before I hire someone? And the answer is you don't need to save anything before you hire someone. Now, I don't want you to be like, oh, that's financially irresponsible. Like, absolutely. If you want to save, you can do it, but it's not a necessity to do that. I always like to be in a position where I am confident, okay, the business is going to be able to support that hire because I can see that the tasks I'm giving them are either directly increasing the bottom line of the business or they're removing work from my plate that needs to happen so I can increase the bottom line of the business. Hiring a VA really forces you to get focused on the income of the business, on the return in that investment. Every person you hire on your team, whether it's a contractor doing, social media or a podcast manager or graphic designer or someone like that, or it's more of a core team member who's working in the day-to-day operations, every single one of those hires, everything you pay for in your business should show up in the ROI. There should be an increase in revenue based on that hire, whether it's directly because they're selling or they're marketing or something, or indirectly because they're taking something off your plate so that you can do those things in the business. So it's important to think about it that way. It's really similar to investing in a coaching program or a course. You're investing in that program to increase the ROI and to increase the revenue of the business and the profitability of the business. So it's not about it's not just about how much money I have in my bank account right now. It's about what's the potential earnings when I bring this person into the business. Okay. So just something for you to consider. Like I said, when you hire, it will really snap you into a next level of how you see your business. It's no longer just you. You are not the business. It changes the way you see things. And the thing I feel like I have to add here is this is especially important for people with ADHD and potentially with other types of neurodiversity as well. To hire early and get support on things that you struggle with, particularly with those of us with ADHD, are things like monotonous tasks, things that have to happen regularly. I'm going to give you an outline of a ton of different tasks you can hand over to a VA on this episode, so stay tuned for that. Let's talk about how to find a VA. There's a few different ways you can do this. They all have pros and cons, and it's really just about assessing your current level of comfort and what you feel like will be a good fit for you. One little caveat I just want to add here is that it's really important to find, pay, treat, employ your VA ethically. And I used to avoid saying this because it seems so freaking obvious to me, but it's not. And so many people exploit VAs and hire people for $3 an hour and are trying to find the cheapest rate and all of that. That is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about employing someone in some capacity who is paid a fair wage for the work that they're doing. And it's not about finding the cheapest possible way to hire someone. Really important as a business owner that you focus on, if you're bringing people into your business, that, they need to be making a fair amount of money for the work that they're doing. Okay? Important, just a caveat, need to preface with, because one of the greatest entry points for hiring a VA is going with an agency. Now, if you go with a VA agency, I think you need to use, be values-based, based on your values and ethics on are the VAs being paid well? Because when you go with an agency, they're going to have their own business model. They're going to be basically you're going to pay the agency and the agency is they're employing the VAs. So I would just make sure to see what they, often it'll be on websites or really clear in their marketing materials, sort of how their stance is on paying their VAs and, how they treat their VAs and all of that. But I would just ask questions if you're not sure, because I just think this is so important. That said, going through an agency is a great way to get started, because if you've never hired before, or you're nervous about what you're going to be giving them, or nervous about oh my God, I'm employing this person, and what if I realize I don't need them anymore, or I can't afford them anymore, then it's not like the person is losing their livelihood if you stop working with the company. They would just work with, they'll work with multiple clients, right? So my first VA absolutely came from an agency, and we worked with her for, I want to say, 2 years, and it was great. Like, it was a great fit. She did great work for us. We loved her. It's just, we outgrew that situation and moved on to the next sort of setup. So the next kind of level of hiring would be bringing in a contractor who is a VA, who sort of has their own sort of services as a VA. Maybe they have their own business as a VA. They're freelancing as a VA. That's also a great way of hiring a VA. So let's talk about some pros and cons there. It will be more expensive usually than going through an agency. You might get someone who's a little bit more familiar with the type of work you do, especially if you're, running an online business. The VA will have more of that, like, they'll speak online business language, right? Like, they'll understand a bit more about the different software and marketing and social media and all of that. One thing to just keep in mind is, like, while they're on your team, they're also running their own business. And so they have their own interests, and they're going to set their own rates, and they're going to, work with clients. And a lot of times what happens with VAs who run their own businesses is they start to want to grow out of being the VA. Maybe they want to become more of a business manager. Maybe they want to do a different type of work. A lot of times they'll say, like, oh, I want to do more strategy work now. And so it's something to just, like, there's nothing wrong with that, and, like, power to everybody to do the kind of work that they want to do. However, it can be kind of frustrating because I've had this happen where somebody decides, like, they don't want to do the work I hired them for anymore. They're now, like, transitioning into doing strategy, but I'm like, I don't really want strategy. I want the work that, like, I hired for this. So they're going to kind of set their own thing. So it might be a good fit for a while. And then what ends up happening is it will probably be a situation that, like, gets outgrown. Normally that's what happens. The final sort of level of hiring a VA would be hiring someone as a contractor or employee, but hiring them apart from them running their own business. So, having a job posting on, like, Craigslist, and, I love Craigslist, so you guys know, I find so many great people on Craigslist. I love Craigslist. Job posting sites, things like that. So you would be creating a role. We had a VA on our team for the last year. She just recently left us. She had a new opportunity, but we loved working with her. She was a contractor for us, and we hired her. She'd never worked in online business before, and we trained her in how to do everything we needed her to do. That's something is really empowering, is when you realize all these things you think you need them to have skills about, like, they need to know how to update lead pages, or they need to know, like, how to, I don't know, whatever software we use, or our email marketing software. They don't have to know the software. Like, you learned the software, they can learn the software. They don't necessarily need to know the software. They need to have the right strengths, and they need to be the right kind of person. So with a VA, what I'm going to caution is you normally aren't looking for, like, a hyper creative type. So I would make a horrible VA. I would be awful. I'm inconsistent. I want to do creative work. I don't like monotonous tasks. I don't like details. You're looking for someone who loves organization, who loves schedules, who loves routine, who loves step-by-step processes. They're going to be doing a lot of implementing work given step-by-step instructions. Okay? And one thing I want to add here, because I didn't leave a place for it, is when you're onboarding and training your VA, one of the best things to do is get a little extension on Chrome called Loom, where you can record really quick screen videos that automatically generate a link you can send. And then what we do is, so let's say I assign a new task to someone and they don't know how to do it. I'll record a really quick Loom video showing them how to do it, put the link to that Loom video in the task, and then that Loom video forever lives in that task. So if that person leaves the business and someone else has to do the task, the Loom video is still in there telling them how to do the task. So that's one of my favorite ways to start creating SOPs, standard operating procedures, checklists, things like that, is having quick videos where you just show people how to do things. Most people like to see things visually anyway, and you can teach people way more than you think. Remember, you didn't used to know how to do all this stuff and you figured it out. They can figure it out too, but you want the right kind of person, more detail oriented, more of a logical thinker, organizational, all that kind of stuff. Not a Courtney. You don't want me. Her name could be Courtney, but it's not me. Okay, so I'm not going to go in too much into the hiring process. That's like a whole conversation. And I want to get to the 25 things to hand over to your VA. We actually give inside of EA400K, we give our clients our whole like hiring process of the exact job description and everything we use, an onboarding process for our VA. So if you are in EA400K or you enroll in EA400K, you'll get access to all those templates. But let's talk about at a high level, getting really clear about what kind of person we're looking for and what we're looking for in a VA. It's really smart to have a clear job posting no matter what you do. Whether you are going with an agency, whether you're hiring a freelancer, a VA business owner, or hiring, sort of on your own, it's important for you to get really clear on what you're looking for and craft a job posting, because that's going to be sort of the basis of the role. This is the foundation of the job. We don't want to be winging it too much when we hire. We're going to be winging it a little, let's be honest. It's going to happen. We're not shooting for perfection here, but we do want to make sure that we're at least like getting some of our ducks in a row. So a VA is not a Jack or Jane of all trades. They're not there to be a mini you and just do all the random stuff you decide that you don't want to do. They can't do everything that you do. It's not going to be like a smaller version of you in the business. That's not what it's going to be. This is an individual, has their own strengths, their own passions, their own interests, their own qualities. And we want to make sure to take that into consideration. If you want a VA who is not just doing administrative work, but you want them to do things like copywriting or design, that is a different kind of role than somebody who's going to be setting up tech and, sending off emails in your email marketing platform and updating spreadsheets and answering customer service. Okay. If you want someone to write basic copy, even then you're going to have to do quite a bit of training. And a lot of people really don't want to do that. So I would consider you probably are looking for someone more like a content assistant than a VA. A VA is more of an administrative and tech person who's going to be doing all sort of like the nuts and bolts things behind the scenes administratively, not marketing. Okay. So a marketing VA or a marketing assistant is very different from a VA, a tech or admin sort of person. Read some blogs. What I would do is just like literally Google, how to find a great VA or what can I hand my VA or how to onboard a VA. Just like do some research, right? I'm going to give you lots of suggestions here, but this isn't like my area of expertise. I just have a lot of experience hiring and working with VAs, and I've done all the things, right? I've worked with all the different types of VAs I mentioned. We've probably had like 10 VAs in this business over the last 10 years. Maybe not 10, but maybe like 6 or something. So we worked with a lot of different people. And so I just think like immersing yourself and trying to understand it is a really good idea. I'm always a big fan of just doing a bunch of research and reading as much as you can. And then another great idea is just to visualize what you're imagining the relationship looking like and writing anything down, even if it seems silly. So one thing I realized recently in the last year that was really important to me was being able to meet with my team in person. Like in my mind's eye, my team is local, not online. And so we've hired 100% within Metro Vancouver. That presents its own challenges, but that was something that was really important to me. Now, of course, COVID hit and we haven't actually met in person, but there's still something really, really cool to me about the fact that we are all in the same area. And that was something that you won't hear a lot of online business owners talking about, but that was something that was really important to me personally. Other things you can visualize are just like, how do you see yourselves communicating? How often do you see yourselves communicating? When are you going to have meetings? All that kind of stuff. So those are details that you can hash out, read blogs, like all that. I'm not going to give recommendations around that. I do think it's good to meet with your VA at least once a week to have like a weekly check-in and sort of go over the next week. But other than that, you can figure out what that looks like if you want to use Slack for communication, what project management system you're going to use, all that kind of stuff. So just things to really consider. What are you visualizing this experience of having someone on your team looking like? And that will help to maybe whittle down some of the questions, some of the decisions, like what kind of VA you want to hire or what you want to assign them or whatnot. Okay, let's get into the juicy stuff, which is 25 things you can hand over to your VA. What kinds of tasks can you give a VA? What are they going to help you with? How are they going to help you create space in your business to create more revenue for you, to grow the business? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over each of these things, and I'm going to try to address for as many as possible what kind of training you can give people, what kind of resources you can give them. I'm also going to recommend that you, as the entrepreneur, track your time for a week and grab like a spreadsheet, a piece of paper. There's lots of free online time trackers that you can use, but track just like the work you do for a week. This is so eye-opening for so many reasons. I very much recommend it. As a team, we're actually implementing this once a quarter for everyone on the team so we can get clear on what we're doing, like what we're spending our time on as a company. But it can also help you identify things that you could give to your VA, things that you don't need to be doing, things you need to clarify, things you want to hand over, and you can make your own list or refine the one that I have for you right here. So here are 25 things that you can have your VA do. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm deciding this right now as I'm recording this, which is always a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to turn this list into a Google Doc with more details that you can get a copy of. So I'm going to go ahead and put that at courtneyschall.com/VA, and you'll be able to grab your copy of this download, and that will be a good guidepost for you. So hopefully I don't regret saying that, because now I've got to do it, but I've got the list, so I've just got to flesh it out based on whatever I say now. All right. So number 1, respond to emails. The first thing we have everyone who comes into our team do in any kind of administrative capacity is customer service. Customer service doesn't just mean client emails. It means all emails coming in generically to the business, including ones where people are actually trying to get my attention. So in order to set this up, you need to have an email that is the email for the business. And you're probably going to want to set up a separate personal email for yourself. So that's some sort of like admin work you can do before you hire someone, or you can have them do when they come on the team, is set up a different personal email for you than the email for the business. So what we did is like Courtney at, realbreakersclub.com, or Courtney at, I don't think we have Courtney at courtneyschall.com, but that email used to be my personal email, but it became so like flooded with customer service stuff that we just started forwarding that. So that goes into the customer service email, which is our hello@courtneyschall.com email. So all that goes there. And then I created a separate personal email for myself that is my personal email that isn't like all the business stuff. So I don't see that. It is so amazing. Please do this as fast as you can, even if you don't have a VA, so that you can have a separate customer service inbox from your personal inbox, and you can treat the customer service inbox as customer service instead of feeling like you're personally receiving all of these emails. It's such a great way to start to separate yourself from all the noise. Okay. So, what kind of SOPs do you need for this? What you want to do is start paying attention to the most common emails you're getting. So you'll probably have emails like asking to pick your brain, asking about your services, asking about, whatever questions you're getting. And you want to create sort of like canned responses to, I'm going to say like the 10 most common questions you get via email. And you can find, if you've gotten those emails before, hopefully you have, if they're the most common questions, you can find examples in your inbox. Take a screenshot and throw all this into a Google document so you can show an example of if you get this kind of email, this is how to respond. And then that way your customer service person is just going, okay, copy, paste, update the details, etc. Okay, the second thing you can hand to your VA is follow up with clients. One thing, and this is only possible if you have a streamlined signature service, if you're flying by the seat of your pants, writing proposals and doing different work for every client, this becomes really hard. So you'll have to join us in Yay for 100K so we can get you streamlined. But when you have a streamlined signature service, we actually, all of our clients, and if you are a Yay for 100K client, here's what you can do is, we have all these email templates that you use for communication with clients while you're working with clients. And we have our clients create all these emails in advance, send them to us, we give them feedback on them. And then those emails, you can have your VA send the majority of those. So emails, reminding clients to send in their pre-work, emails, following up with clients, asking for feedback and testimonials. You don't need to do any of that. Your VA should have a task to do that whenever you're working with a client. But again, in order to get that happening going smoothly, you do have to have a really streamlined signature process. It can't be like different every time. That's what's going to make this run like a well-oiled machine. Okay, the third thing you can hand over to your VA is getting testimonials from clients. So this goes hand in hand with the follow-up. And I just want to say, like, kind of combined with the follow-up is just because and a lot of people get wrapped up in this thought, like, I'm the face of the business, they're working with me, I'm a solopreneur, so like, how dare they get an email from someone who's not me? We need to remember, you are not a solopreneur anymore. We've already nipped that in the bud. You are a business owner. And as such, you have a team, and it is none of your clients' business who's on your team. They know you're a business owner. They know you have a team. It's not going to be shocking to them. That there's no problem with having someone on your team reach out to clients for like regular communication that gets sent out that can be templated. Okay. This includes getting testimonials. A lot of our clients really avoid this process of asking for feedback and sending their feedback survey and asking for testimonials. You know who doesn't have a complex about that? Your VA. So I always had, because I just got like stage fright about emailing my clients after we finished working together asking for feedback. So that was something I had my VA do. And guess what? We got feedback almost every single time. Fourth thing you can hand over to your VA is sending contracts and invoices. Now, if you have a system like Dubsado that does this, what you can do is like have your VA manage that system and make updates in that system, right? Like that should be them, not you. Again, that will take some Loom videos and some training and showing them how to do stuff. But once they know how to do it, you don't have to do it anymore. One thing we had our VA do, now our ops manager is doing it, is so once our clients sign their contracts for our program, like she'll download the contract and upload it into our Airtable where we manage all of our clients and all our client sort of like information and files. So that's taken care of, right? If you're sending invoices, you can have a VA send the invoice. You don't need to set all that up. You just, people avoid this because they're like, oh, but it's like, it doesn't take very long. It's like, yeah, but it adds up. So yeah, it might take 10 minutes to show them how to do it. And you're like, I could have done it faster, but now you never have to do it again and they can do it for the rest of time. So that's a good one. Number 5. Reach out to past leads. I love this. Okay, so what you can do is if you've had people inquire about working with you or apply to work with you, if you're using our application system that we teach, you'll have a record of all those people who've applied and people who maybe said, oh, it's not a good fit right now, or maybe you have a service that is repeatable or something like that. And you can have a process, again, template some emails and say, okay, this person said they might be ready in December, so I want you to follow up with them in December. Or they can just remind you to follow up with them in December, right? You can really lean on your VA to help you to create these systems as well and remind you to do stuff, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Number 6, create basic landing pages. I really got stuck in the trap of like being my own designer and feeling like I had to build all the pages and everything. So building basic landing pages, making basic edits on your website. Again, if you're not a web designer, you figured out this stuff by yourself, teach your VA how to do it. I don't build any of not any, there's a few I've done. Sometimes I get excited and I create stuff, but we have this beautiful registration page for our conference. I still, every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. I didn't create a piece of it. Now I set the tone for it. I had already created pages that could be used as reference points. And, I had the brand created to make it easier and I give feedback on it, right? But I didn't have to build the page. So handing these small things over, even if they seem silly at first, it's helping to train someone how to do something so you can slowly hand over bigger and bigger things. So first you could have them build a basic like opt-in page, right? And building an opt-in page is awesome because it teaches someone not only how to build the opt-in page, and we use lead pages. So you're building the opt-in page on lead pages. It also teaches them how to link up the opt-in page with the email marketing platform so that they can see how all the software is interacting and get more context. So let people do these things. Let them fail. Let them do it wrong. Create videos. Give them feedback on, what you want changed so that they understand how to do it. They want to do it in the way that you like, but we have to give that instruction and be willing to give that training to people. So again, those Loom videos are awesome. Regular feedback is awesome. And then updating, the way that you're explaining things. If you're constantly telling someone to do something and they're not doing it the way you like, maybe the instructions need to be a little bit more clear. Number 7, send marketing emails. I never have to log into our email marketing platform. Like, I love it. This was such a big shift for me when I stopped running all the email marketing and doing it all and sending all the newsletters and setting up all the campaigns and everything. Was like, people would ask me, how do you do this in, Infusionsoft or, whatever platform? And I would go, I don't know. I didn't do it. Someone on my team did. And so having an email, it can be scary the first time for them and for you to have an email sent out that, they're sending. That's why you want to handhold and walk them through the process and help them build that confidence. Again, it's not about handing them a task and going, do it. Oh, you did it wrong. I'm going to take it back now. Don't do that. So many people do that. Don't do that. It's about really making it easy for them, giving them lots of instructions so that they feel confident doing it, giving feedback, testing the email, and then also knowing, like, what's the worst thing that can happen is they send an email to the wrong people. Okay, oops, we'll fix it, right? Things happen. It's totally fine. All right. Number 8 we're at is setting up Zaps. So Zaps, we use Zapier, whatever you call it, to set up a lot of automations in our business. And I'm going to tell you, I have no idea how they're set up. I didn't set up a single one, and I've tried to set them up and I cannot figure it out. So I love this. We have someone on our team who sets up Zaps. So actually our VA who just left, we're like super sad about. We'll miss her. But we called her the Zap Queen because she knew nothing about Zap. She knew nothing about any of this software when she joined us. By the time she left, she was absolutely a master at setting up Zaps. So what Zaps can do is just really sort of connect two pieces of software that don't already have like a connection with each other. There's no integration, and you can have them talk to each other. So for example, we set up Zaps to, so when we get an application for EA for 100K, there's a Zap set up to send us a Slack message to let us know about the application. So we get a notification in Slack that we have a new application, which is super fun. All right. Number 9, update spreadsheets. So spreadsheets are something that businesses have, managing budgets, tracking metrics, all that kind of fun stuff. And you want to be tracking these things. Maybe you want to be tracking your growth, your email list growth, your social media growth, whatever it is. We have lots of trackers for our clients. So we have them track their key performance indicators, their KPIs for their launches, for their services, for booking clients. And we also have like a 90-day list building tracker for them. You could have your VA fill that out. Like, you don't need to do it. You need to look at it, right? And make decisions, but you don't have to do the actual doing of gathering the data and getting that information. So updating spreadsheets is a great one. Any kind of data input that you can do is awesome. And that leads me to my next one, which I'm going to sort of piggyback of, is number 10, organize expense receipts or update any kind of like budgeting spreadsheets, right? So one thing we do is, we get expense receipts. Most of ours are digital. I'll get an email receipts for things I spent money on in the business. And I always make sure those receipts get forwarded to our customer service inbox. And the person managing that inbox has a process to download those receipts and send them to our bookkeeper. So I don't have to do it. I just have to send them to them, and then they send it to the bookkeeper and it all gets organized. Along the same vein, we have a budget sheet. So we have a whole budget sheet that is our whole business budget. And then we have an actual sheet where we track the actual expenses each month. So once our books are done for the month, and a bookkeeper is another person you should definitely hire, especially if you have ADHD, separate person, not your VA, is our VA will go in once our books are completed for the month, and she'll input the actual expenses into the actual budget sheet based on the bookkeeper's work. So that way we have this really clean financial tracking. I won't go too deep into that because I know that starts to get confusing. We have both because they're organized differently and we get different information out of each of them. But yeah, that way I don't have to do that. I hate data input. It's awful. It's the worst. So then I can just go look and see what the data says, but I don't have to spend all my time inputting data. Number 11 is scheduling podcast interviews or any other kind of like event. So if we have somebody pitch me to be on their podcast, I mean, that's not the right way of putting it. If we have someone email and ask me to be on their podcast as a guest, I don't look at it, right? Like, we have a rule in the business that unless the podcast is like super sketchy, like somebody is like not, we have like core values, right? So if we look at a podcast and we're like, this doesn't align with our values, whatever, we say yes to the podcast interviews. So, and I very rarely get pitched for podcasts that are fallen along those lines. That said, our VA is the one who would go ahead and schedule that interview, being able to look at my calendar, my availability, and then schedule it with that podcast host. Awesome. Then it gets done. All right, where am I? Number 12, collect testimonials. So I already had get testimonials from clients. This one's a little bit different. Collecting testimonials is something we do, and these are more like spontaneous testimonials. So we constantly, every week, we have someone on our team who goes into our Facebook groups for our programs, takes screenshots of any testimonials and uploads them into an Airtable base where we tag and organize them based on what is the testimonial, who was the client who said it, what's the topic of the testimonial, and everything's super organized so that when we want to find testimonials for very specific things, we can find them, which I love. The worst thing is knowing you have testimonials for something and not being able to find them. Number 13, posting on social media. It doesn't have to be a social media manager or something. You can easily teach someone to be in charge of posting, scheduling posts on social media. A few examples of this are we have regular Instagram stories that go up every single day to promote various things. And those are pre-made. Our graphic designer made the graphics. And one of our team members goes and just pops those stories up every single day. Could be posting posts on Instagram. It could be scheduling posts for your Facebook communities, all of that. So I don't do any of that stuff. I mean, I post on Instagram and do stories, but some of that stuff I don't. Sometimes I'm not the person who actually uploaded it. 14, basic video editing. Okay, if you do any kind of video, it's really easy. You might not know how to use iMovie, but I promise, if you are doing video editing, or hopefully you know how to do the video editing that you're doing, I guess. But I taught myself to edit my own YouTube videos, so I could easily teach someone else to do that. I always think if I can do it, they can do it. Like there's nothing special about me that I can do this like magical thing that someone else can't do. In fact, they usually do it better than me. And they'll do it different than me, but it's not to say it's wrong. It's often better in a lot of ways. So having specific instructions on how to video edit or going over like that process is really important. And with everything, in the beginning, you're going to have to give more instructions and more context and more information on how to do the thing. And then with time, they will get good at it better than you even, and they won't need all that instruction. So yes, the heavy lifting is in the beginning when you're training someone how to do a task. Number 15 is engage on social media. I do this very minimally, but it's something you can definitely do. So one way we do this is if, let's say we post a post on social media saying, comment with the word clients if you want me to DM you the link to our free whatever download. And then I'm not going to go personally DM everyone the download. I can have my VA go in and personally DM everyone with a download with a message that gives them the link and everything, right? So little things like that. It's not about them pretending to be you. I'm not about that. That's not what we recommend. But just doing kind of like some basic engagement or responding to questions that they can answer, things like that. It could also be one thing I've had people do is if it's like a really easy question to answer and they know the answer because I've provided the answer at like me, I'm like, this is the answer. They could go in and log in as me and just post the answer, right? So sometimes that makes life a little bit easier if you get the same questions again and again and again. Okay. Number 16 is manage your calendar. I love that I am not responsible for everything that goes on my calendar. And this requires having some rules about my calendar. I don't take meetings before 10. I don't do meetings on Fridays. We try to keep things to Tuesdays and Wednesdays and sometimes Thursdays if possible. And with that, it makes it really easy for someone if they're trying to find time for something on my calendar that they can go in and move things around because I've been clear and communicated my do's and don'ts in my own calendar. This also means that they could remind you about things that you have to do. That's always helpful, especially if you have ADHD. So the important thing there is you getting clear on what are your rules for your calendar. And that's allowed to change over time, but important nonetheless. Number 17 is posting blog posts. So you don't have to ever log into your website or blog again and post a blog post. This was a huge thing. This was the biggest thing for me when I hired my first VA because I was really inconsistent with my blog posting. I wanted to be more consistent. So I told the VA, we post a blog post every single week on Tuesday or Thursday, whatever day it was, on Thursday. And that way I was committing to doing it, right? Like I wasn't posting every week, but I told her we post every week on Thursday. And guess what? We posted every week on Thursday because she needed things by Wednesday. And if she didn't have them, guess who she was coming after? Me. And then I didn't want to let her down. I didn't want to waste the money I was spending to pay for her. And so I got it done. And that is what helped me to get YouTube videos out every single week for like 3 years or something like that. So that's a really big one, but it does require slowly building up a process for posting blog posts and how you like things done and how you like things formatted. Again, heavy lifting in the beginning on the feedback and the instructions and building those SOPs, but it's totally worth it in the end. Number 18 is updating basic graphics with templates and guidance. Quick sip of my water. All right. So you have to mitigate your expectations that, especially those of you who are very visual or you're designers and things, you guys have these expectations about what kind of graphics someone else is going to make. And let me tell you, most people do not know how to make graphics. So if you have templates that you are happy with and you just want the text updated, or you have certain kind of ways that you update the graphics, you need to be really clear with that information. If you need those letters to be spaced out 25%, make sure that's clear. Don't not tell them that or be like, they should notice. They're not going to notice. Okay. So you need to really lay out how you want those things updated. Again, heavy lifting in the beginning. Hopefully with templates makes it a lot easier. So if you're like creating like Pinterest graphics for your blog, or you have like quote graphics for Instagram, you could have them make a bunch of those to go out. Number 19 is writing simple copy, again, with templates and guidance. So if you have a template for your newsletter so we did this where it was like, our template for our newsletter was taking the first part of the blog post and turning it into an email with a link then to read the rest on the blog post. That was years ago, but that was our template. So that was really easy for someone to build that email based on the blog post that I had created. Number 20 is creating travel itineraries. This isn't one that I've done. I was always like weird about booking my own travel. I shouldn't have been because I accidentally double booked a plane ticket once. True story. I was like, why do I have 2 plane tickets for this trip? Well, because you bought 2. So having someone maybe like book your travel, again, based on your criteria, you need to be clear on like, are you an aisle seat person? Do you have time of day preferences? Is there an airline you fly? You have to document all this information. It's super important, but it can be really nice if you would like want that luxury of having someone else book your travel for you. You can also have them check into the flights for you, things like that. Obviously, this isn't relevant right this minute. I haven't traveled in over a year, but it can be really helpful. And then they could also create just like a rough itinerary for you. So that could be really helpful as well if you want to have sort of a schedule while you're traveling. Number 21, setting up calls and meetings. This is an easy one, but essentially is just like, hey, we need to schedule a call for this. And you can say to your VA, you need to be in charge of that. So get that set up. Maybe you need to figure out what time works for everybody, et cetera. But just having them schedule that. Number 22 is organizing your to-do list. This is one I wish I had done a little bit more. I had a personal assistant for a brief amount of time, and I really wanted to get into this. This is a goal for the future probably, but is having your VA go over, maybe looking at your project management system and looking at, okay, these are the things that you need to do today, and sending you on Slack each day that list, like, okay, this is what's on deck. This is what we need from you today. That could be really nice. I would love that. Number 23, pitching podcasts. We have a process for having someone on our team go out and pitch podcasts. I actually hired someone who does PR to help me to do this. And then we created these pitches and, made it really nice. And then, we can have someone on our team actually reach out to podcasts and pitch. And so when I was a guest on a lot of podcasts, a big reason for that was that we were actively pitching a lot of podcasts. Number 24 is research for a project, or research like a software or something you're thinking of buying. Or maybe you're like, I'm looking for the best camera for doing YouTube videos that's under $500. Like you could have them do some of that research for you. Researching for a project, it could be something like, oh, I want to host my first webinar. I'm not sure what's involved. Can you do some research and kind of break down what everything is that we would need to do to host a webinar? Right? It's a little bit higher level, but I like to challenge people with projects like this because it forces them to have to think in a different way. Number 25, and this is my favorite, is having them nag you to remind you to do things. This is for all my ADHD brothers and sisters out there. I love being nagged. I love being reminded. I love being poked. And I tell my team, like, please don't hesitate. If you're missing something from me, just please bother me because I will forget. That's my nature. Some of you might hate that. I thought I would, but I would rather be nagged about it and go, oh yeah, I need to do that than them not say anything and just wait for me to do it. So having them be there to just be like, hey, I need this. Hey, I need that is really helpful. Okay, so those are my 25 things you can hand over to your VA. There's so many other. Those are the ones that I came up with. I want you to mitigate expectations around what your VA does and get specific about what you need. They're not going to do everything and they're not going to start with everything, and you're going to have to train them up on everything you need them to do, okay? Please give your VA feedback regularly. I love this advice from a book, The Culture Code, that I read. So good. Can't remember the author's name right now. They talked about, strong teams. What the leaders do is they treat the team members each like a star student who they know is going to go places, and they just want to get the best out of that student. So if you really give that feedback in that sense of like, I really am trying to sort of mentor someone to be able to be really successful, think of it that way. I think that's a great approach to managing. It's also smart to bring your VA in on your vision, give them context to the business, give them context to their goals. It really helps people to feel like they're a part of something. They're a part of the team and they're included, and then they buy in more to what you're doing. And then finally, my last tip is just get as clear as possible about their job title. If you are looking for someone to do something very specific, you might want to pick a different job title. We weren't looking for a quote unquote virtual assistant, so we called ours a administrative and tech assistant because we wanted them to be focused on the admin and tech side of the business. So that's it. Those are my tips for hiring your first VA. I know this got a little bit longer than my usual episode. Next week, episode 29, I'm going to be talking to those of you who probably aren't even listening, because it's those of you who are too busy, that you're too busy to work on your business. And this is going to be a passionate episode. So stay tuned for next week's episode. If you're kind of in the trap of busyness and don't have time to work on your business and you're overflowing with client work and scrambling and getting resentful and not sure how you're going to grow from there, next week's episode is for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will chat with you then. Yay! Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you love today's content and are ready to finally start making a full-time income from your business this year, make sure to get on the wait list for my program, Yay for Clients, over at yayforclients.com, and you'll be notified the next time enrollment is open. Or if you're already booked with clients and you want to learn how you can turn your signature service into a signature program and add 100K of revenue to your bottom line, come apply to my group coaching program, Yay for 100K, over at CourtneyShaw.com/apply. Thanks again, and have an awesome day.